At the dark room, illuminated by the tenuous light of the moon, the mother is spending the night awake, taking care of his small baby, who sleeps in his cradle. The woman, small and fragile, in spite of sleeping, seems to be very attentive to any movement or discomfort that the baby could have during his rest. Since almost permanently continues looking at him with infinite tenderness, without neglecting by no means to avoid that any noise of the street could disturb him. A few moments ago, when the sound of a locomotive in the distance broke the silence of the night, the baby, worried, woke up and began to cry lightly and in labored form. Then the mother, who warned the inconvenience of his sin, immediately inclined over him, and after giving him a few soft kisses in the cheeks, and to caress it sweetly, she achieved in a few seconds that he was stopping crying and recover the sleep. On having seen that finally he had fallen asleep, she walked a few steps towards the window, and she closed it quickly, diminishing this way the annoying shriek of the active at-night train. As soon as she had closed it, she returned fastly next to the cradle. Full of happiness, and with a big happiness shining in the eyes, she remained looking absorbed at his small treasure, who placidly rests with safety of having next to him the best company. Before the minor sign of waking up, or the subtlest and light movement, there she is, with her small and cold hands, caresses him, and gives him calmness in all the moments. Although in this night, the woman might not be happier with any other thing in the world, her eyes, although happy, shows the weariness of several days, sleeping less of the dew thin. Nevertheless, that does not matter for her. In spite of his physical and mental fatigue, after a day of oppressive work, her small baby makes her to see the life of a completely different form. As if he was one small and wonderful oasis in the middle of an inhospitable and exasperating desert. She continues there, like indefatigable watchtower, taking care of the most important thing that she has in the world. As a chest full of hopes and illusions, and full of faith in the future, she controls permanently any movement of the small one, and in his tired eyes, the small silhouette of the asleep child is reflected. Undoubtedly they together form a different world, harmonious and perfect, far away from the problems, anxiety and despairs of the oppressive outside. A world in where the words turn out to be unnecessary, where only are sufficient the looks and the sensations to understand everything. Without removing a second the eyes of the small cradle, the mother would like that these magic moments lasts forever, that this immense complicity and this peace that today they have continues with the same intensity for the rest of their lives. With her wet hand, she caresses sweetly the small body with so many gentleness and tenderness that does not come to interrupt the calm sleep. A few moments ago, while they were enjoying her calmness, abstracted of the rest of the world, she had a short rest on his armchair, and closed for a moment the eyes, trying to imagine what will wait for the small baby in the future. How he will be when he has grown, did she wonder. He will be a happy man, or he will live cornered by the problems, frightened by his fears, and overwhelmed by his obsessions. He will have a pacific and calm life, or he will have to happen someday for extreme situations and for big conflicts that will irritate him and will put him to test. He will be a good man, or will be vile and evil. He will live through a free life, or will have to support humiliations and turpitude that offend him and hurt his dignity. He will be an honest person, dear and respected by whom no, or he will be despised and attacked. He will have any special talent. He will be happy or melancholy. He will be rich. He will spend deprivations and will suffer for it. He will need me and will love me. He will be greedy and he will keep his money, acting with the pride of that they have too much, and forget the pain of others. These thoughts, which presented her quickly, and in a few seconds, draw in her face, although fleetingly, a grimace of worry. That disappeared when after the insistent barking of a few street dogs, the child woke up and began to cry. And she, with tenderness, raised him between her arms, placing sweetly his little head on her breast. All his mother's doubts will late in disappearing, and although it stays still a lot of time ahead, Her face became pale for some moments, when she imagined the day, for the time being distant, in which her son will have to say goodbye. She pictured the time when he will separate to her side as a bird that leaves the old nest and part looking for new horizons. But immediately, on having seen his smallest hand grasped between her fingers, and his happy and relaxed face, a deep satisfaction illuminated her soul again. Her sleepless eyes, full of tears, fixed his sight in the small treasure, which despite he can't realize, had changed her life forever. Grasping the small body against her, she began to cry of happiness, and she tried to keep these irrecoverable moments, which will mark the two, inexorably for the rest of their lives. Trying to erase the bitter expression that had provoked her previous doubts, she imagined him, already adult, as a worthy man, proprietor of his own freedom, respected by his peers, and loved for his family. And that in spite of having a good economic position, he would not forget those that they have less than him. Meanwhile she was imagining happy, this fortunate future. The baby, which still continued in his arms, woke up again, and did a gesture to sob. In this moment the woman quickly began to move him softly, and to mumbling him some indecipherable words, which the child immediately stopped crying, and opened the pleasant wan smile that illuminated his face. During some moments mother magically interlaced their looks. In these moments, without need of words or unnecessary gestures, both perfectly understood each other. Then both comprising that authentic and real happiness only exists in these simple occasions, in which it seems to us that the world had been created only so that we were living them. After a few seconds, the baby fell asleep again, and the woman secretly left him again in the cradle, and covered him in silence. The years will last, and when he will grow up, he surely someday will remember this look, which will remain forever printed on his soul, and that perhaps, after having lost it in the memory, it will return to him in his more difficult moments, as a spiritual balsam that will calm his anxiety and his spirit. Perhaps he will have a happy life, he will be virtuous, respected and good, or maybe he will be tormented by his problems, alienated by his similar ones, and humiliated by whom will be for on him. Perhaps the life presents to him beautiful and full of illusions, or perhaps he must draw lots of adversities to achieve the happiness. The time will clear all the doubts, and will make a reality, or destroy current illusions. But all that for the time being has no importance. Already there will be time, in some years, to suffer for the defeats, and to enjoy the victories. Will be time to be glad to suffer, and to be born new and better hopes. For the time being he sleeps, ignoring everything, in a state of entire purity. His mother watches him tenderly, and looks over him. Before he wakes up again, she inclines before his cradle, kisses him sweetly, and returns to his armchair, happy, with tears in his eyes. And next to this pleasant scene, everything else turns out to be superfluous.